point blank, the only and the most effective way to minimize language barrier in a language speaking country or as an immigrant is to learn the language. Hey guys, welcome back here. And if this is your first time on this channel, my name is Relocateabroad, and on this channel we talk about everything about motherhood, lifestyle, women, everything in between. So if you're interested in stuff like this, just make sure to press that subscribe button and join the family. So if you're looking to migrate into countries like Germany, Russia, Ukraine, and you are wondering how to cope in those countries with the language or how to minimize language barriers in such countries, then you need to listen to this video. Okay, so I will start by saying a story. So recently I went for my son's parent-teachers meeting in their school. We call it PTA meeting for some of us who are from Nigeria. And the meeting started. Obviously, I cannot speak German. I learned a bit of German before I came here, but of course, it's their language. When they begin to speak the language and rap in it, I just get lost and confused. So they began the meeting, and guys, I was just looking left and right, looking at everybody's mouth. I almost couldn't pinpoint what they were saying, but I could hear some things. But before I would try to put 2 plus 2 together to get what they're saying, the next conversation springs up, and it just went on and on and on like that. And I was like, wow, woo woo. Like, really, if you have a family and you're coming down to a place like Germany, like Russia, like France, and you do not intend to learn the language, please change your mind and learn the language, because especially if you are coming down with your family, because you just have to relate with them. And not just that, even if you're a single person and you're coming, the best way to really integrate into the system is to understand the language, especially if you intend to stay here for a long time. And now I will also mention that in Germany or in most of these countries, you to think about it, for them to have preserved their language this far, you would know that their language is their identity and they don't joke with it. So most people I will talk about here, because I'm in Germany, most Germans in most of their head offices where you get integrated into the system, when you go there, some of them will tell you that they understand English but they're not permitted to speak English, so you have to go get an interpreter, and you pay awesomely for those interpreters, so it's not that cheap. So I'm just trying to say that have it at the back of your mind when you're coming to a country as this. Just get your mind prepared to learn their language. And if you're coming into their country, they expect that you at least learn their language before coming. In fact, at the early stages or the first week I came into Germany, when you go into a store or anywhere, they don't assume that because you're black, you don't understand the language. They speak the language to you and they expect you to answer. So when you now say you don't understand the language, they just give you a sign like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, it's stressful for them because their language is their language. Like, they're surviving, they've been doing well with their language, and they don't need English, like, according to them. So when you as an immigrant, you just have to learn their language to incorporate into the system. So I will go into the body of this video now to tell you how I have coped so far with this language and how we are coping. Of course, I'm still a student of the language, but I'm just going to put you guys through how to cope in a language speaking country. So my first tip here is Pretravel language learning. You need to at least take your time to learn the language before you travel into their country. In whatever part of the world you're in, try to at least learn, have an idea, so that you're not totally lost when you enter into the country. Because once you enter into the country, you begin to converse, you begin to relate. Let's imagine you enter into a hotel. You have to converse with them somehow, or even if you tell them you understand English, maybe they will be saying something by the side. You at least hear, simple things like hello. Like for Germans, hallo is hello, good morgen is good morning, guten Abend is good evening, Entschuldigung is excuse me, like that. So my next point here is harnessing the power of Google Translate. Immediately we came into the country, we had to shop. And most of the supermarkets have all their things in German, in their language. They are that serious about their language. I mean, all their items, production, most of them are done in Germany. In fact, I can say all, since I've been in Germany, I've not seen the items they sell that are in English, in quote. I've not seen maybe I'm not, gone to that extent, but I'm just trying to say that Google Translate will help you translate document, because immediately you get into this kind of countries, you begin documentation, your house registration, just to settle into the country. So if there's a document sent to you and all of that, you'll be able to understand what they mean. So it's important you harness the use of Google Translate. My next point here would be embrace language learning with openness. This is important because, I understand that most people are leaving Nigeria because of the state of the country at the moment, and most people don't like the stress of learning another language, especially when you're already a grown-up adult and all of that. But it is important that when you're coming to a country as this that have a language that they're speaking, or so they're not speaking English, you just have to have an open mind towards learning their language. That's one way you can quickly learn, because you're open-minded, you're still not feeling rigid that, oh, my English is my English. They won't bend to you, you have to bend to them. You came into their country. So just have that open-mindedness that, oh, I'm ready to learn these people's language. Okay, I know how hard it can be to learn another language, knowing that you already have your language from where you're coming from, you already have English as a language that is not yours, that you already learned, and coming to learn another person's language could look like, oh my god, this is a lot. But for you to really survive in such kind of countries where they have a language, you just have to have an open mind to learn their language. So to my next point here is maximizing your language knowledge. So if peradventure before you left your country you were able to learn the language, and when you landed in their country you got to hear one or two words from them that you could pick and grab, it is important that you use the little use the little converse with it. Try at least to converse with it, maybe at the supermarket or maybe at an appointment. Try to converse with it, greet with it, say a word with it, converse with them with it, like I do when I go to supermarket. I'm like, hey, shitty gong. I'm like, tut me lad, I'm sorry. You just try to say one or two. And when you see that they're saying, when I see that they're saying things that I really don't understand, I quickly let them know I am Isprecherheim Bichendot, that I don't speak much of German, but I'm in the process, that kind of a thing. It's just good to use a little, that way you build more on that. So my next point here is making friends with native speakers. I understand. Coming to another man's country, they have their own culture, not familiar with yours. You have your own culture, and sometimes it's always hard to blend. There's always a bridge in between that is like it's so hard to cross this bridge, but we just have to make an effort to kind of make them your friend, because at the end of the day, action and reaction are equal but opposite. I say is what you give, you get, kind of, in quotes. Except for people that are, at the extreme. What I'm just trying to say is that when you open up a harm of friendship to these people, they are likely to return same. Try as much as possible to find one or two persons from these native speakers as your friend. That way they get to speak more with you with their language, and you get to ask questions, and kind of, I think that they love it when you learn their language. They're open to you, they want to teach you more. They may laugh sometimes at your blunders when you speak their language, but not to condemn you, just to correct you and make you get better. And this information I'm giving you is not just from Germany. I've spoken to a friend in Russia who newly got to Russia and is already speaking the language, and one of the things he said he did was to get one of the native speakers as his friend, and he began to converse, and they've been helping him learn the language, and he's doing fine. So it's important you get one or two of the native speakers as your friend. So my next point here is utilizing apps and social media for language learning. So most of these languages, there are apps that are able to teach them. On YouTube, social media, you get to see content where they teach these languages. I think I've seen for German before. While I was learning German in Nigeria, we were told to check out some videos on YouTube, and I remember downloading few apps that helped me learn the language better. So it's good to use all these apps. They also help you learn more about the language, or you go online, search online for tutorials on how to speak these languages. They really help. So my next point here is enroll in language school for formal learning. Once you land in these countries, there are many tutorial schools where they teach the language. It may be a bit pricey, but it's not always on the high side. So it is is important that you find out where you can learn the best. Be sure to check their customer review. Yeah, be sure to know that people get the value for their money when they go there. So just check around in the vicinity if there are tutorials, formal learning for the language, and Enroll. Some can even space it for you. Maybe you're working, they can space it for you in 2 months, because most of these languages have levels. In Germany, you have the A1, the A2, the B1, the B2, the C1, the C2. And most of the times, if you do not learn this language, your chance of getting a job could be slim. Yeah, because some jobs have a standard for the language that they require from you. Because of course, the people you attend to mostly would be their native speakers. So it is just important that you try to look for people who are teaching formally and Enroll. So my next point here would be language immersion through movie watching. So it's also important that if you want to learn these languages, you watch their movies. Yes, I know it could make you feel somehow. I remember learning German and our teacher encouraged that we watch German movies. Oh my God, it was somehow, but I did. I watched their movies. I still do sometimes. So it also helps you in their conversation. You know, what they're saying. You get familiar with the language when you watch their movies. You get to hear certain words often and often and often and often, and somehow they stick to your mind. So when you watch their movies, it just makes you familiar with their language. So my next point here is overcoming language mistakes with humor. Yeah, you know what humor means? Like jokingly, just joke about it if you make blunders or errors. Like I mentioned earlier, even if you make errors, don't be scared to make blunders. If you make errors in front of them with their language, you just laugh, but not to condemnation, because they are also interested in teaching you their language. So even you, when you make blunders, laugh at yourself. That way you learn faster, you learn better. You're not overly careful of, will I speak it right? Will I not speak it right? You speak about it freely, and you get to, get corrected over and over again. And before you know it, you are getting acquainted with the language. So my next and last point here is exploring, socializing, and conversing. That is important. Yeah. I already mentioned making friends with their native speakers, but also it's important to socialize. And when I mean socialize, I'm not saying being their friends so close. I'm just saying that sometimes in some of these countries, they have events. Like in Germany, they do Christmas markets. Yeah, markets open at some point or the other. You go there, you see the environment, you converse with the seller, you get to socialize with most of these people. So I'm just trying to say that it's not enough that you make a friend and just leave it at that. Be open to socializing, like someone that you kind of gel with, or you kind of like his or her character in quotes. Yeah, you can just socialize, go to places, see their culture, see what they're doing. I mean, just find ways to be friends somehow with native speakers, and not just even native speakers. Mostly these countries already have Nigerians like you who can perfectly speak their language. I think that if you feel unsafe with being friends with the native speakers, then you can, try to be friends with Nigerians like you or Africans like you who already learnt the language and kind of acclimatize yourself with the language so that you can get better as you're learning formally and using your Google Translate and the ideas you have, everything, put it all together, and you still socialize, get to hear the language more often, watch movies. I'm very sure that with these tips, you are going to be able to cope. You're going to be able to minimize language barrier in language speaking countries, guys. It is not impossible. It is totally possible. And everything starts with you being open-minded towards learning the language. I understand that it could be a struggle. Of course, I was there. It could be a struggle, but I can tell you that, especially in Germany, the language is not as hard as some of the languages I've heard of. Yeah, because German language is kind of close to English language. So I believe that you can learn, because guys, I would not lie to you. Coming to Germany, I've heard from 1 or 2 immigrants that learning the language has really helped them, get some favor. Yeah, because some things may look like, it's not possible, but just you speaking the language can make them change their minds. When you speak someone's language, your way of saying, I like you, I like what you guys do, and somehow they have open-mindedness towards you, and it's an advantage for you as an immigrant. It helps you settle in more. You can boastfully walk around in the community without fears because you won't be scared of, oh, what is someone thinking. And you can, in fact, guys, there's nothing like the liberty that comes with you being able to express yourself at every point in time. Like, imagine, look at me while I was in the school. I'm sure if I heard most of the things they said, I would have been able to ask a lot of questions. I'd have been able to give my contributions, but I couldn't. I was just kind of locked up inside. So I just feel that if you make efforts to learn this people's language, it will not only help you survive in such communities, but it will also help you gain more favor, attract more help, stabilize more. In fact, even you would like yourself, the freedom of speech, of expression. I mean, it gives you some kind of serenity and you feel at home. So guys, this is going to be the end of this video. I hope this video was informative and helped you in some way or the other. If you love this video, please make sure to like and share with other people that you think this video might be of help to. So guys, thank you for watching. Always stay tuned till we see in my next video. Bye.